The bullet that whizzed past Willow Everett's head would have killed anyone slower, but her Apache reflexes saved her life that scorching afternoon in White Oaks, New Mexico Territory, August of 1878. She dropped behind the water trough outside the general store, her heart hammering against her ribs as the second shot splintered wood above her head. The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty street, and somewhere in the chaos of screaming townspeople and thundering hooves, she heard a voice call out with authority that cut through the pandemonium like a blade through silk. "Drop your weapons now, or the next shot goes through your hearts instead of the air above your heads." The voice belonged to a man Willow had never seen before, though she had lived in White Oaks for nearly 3 years since the missionaries who raised her brought her here from their small compound near the Mescalero Apache Reservation. She risked a glance over the water trough and saw him, tall and lean, sitting astride a paint horse with the confidence of someone who had faced down death more times than he cared to count. His hat shadowed his face, but she could see the determined set of his jaw and the steady hands that held 2 revolvers pointed at the gang of desperados who had been terrorizing the town for the past hour. The outlaws, 3 rough-looking men covered in trail dust and bad intentions, exchanged glances. The one who appeared to be their leader, a scarred man with yellowing teeth, laughed. "You are 1 man, we are 3. Do the arithmetic, cowboy." "I count 6 bullets in each gun," the stranger replied, his voice carrying that same calm authority. "That is 12 shots. I only need 3. The arithmetic works fine for me." Willow watched, fascinated despite the danger as the tension stretched tight as a bowstring. She could see the outlaws weighing their options, could sense the moment when fear won over bravado. The leader spat into the dust and slowly lowered his weapon. His companions followed suit, and within moments, the sheriff and his deputy were rushing forward with iron shackles. The stranger dismounted with fluid grace, holstering his weapons as he spoke quietly with the sheriff. Willow stood slowly, brushing dust from her simple blue calico dress, aware that her long black braid had come partially undone during her dive for cover. Her dark eyes never left the man who had just saved not only her life, but likely the lives of half a dozen other people on the street. "Miss Everett, are you hurt?" Mrs. Patterson, the storekeeper's wife, hurried over with concern etched across her round face. "I am fine, thank you," Willow replied, her English precise and careful, the product of years of missionary education. Even after all this time, she remained conscious of every word, determined to honor the faith and dedication that Reverend and Mrs. Thomas had shown her since they found her orphaned at 7 years old. The stranger was walking toward her now, and Willow found herself unable to look away. He was perhaps 25 or 26, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer storm, gray with hints of blue that seemed to shift in the harsh afternoon light. His face was angular and handsome in a rugged way, with a few days' worth of stubble darkening his jaw. "Madam," he said, removing his hat to reveal dark brown hair that needed a trim, "are you injured? I saw you go down behind that trough pretty hard." "I am unharmed thanks to your intervention," Willow said, straightening her spine. She had learned from her adopted Apache people never to show weakness, and she had learned from the missionaries never to forget her manners. The combination sometimes made her seem formal, but it also gave her a dignity that commanded respect. "You have my gratitude, Mr. Travis Vaughn," he said, and something in his expression softened as he looked at her. "Just happened to be riding into town at the right time, I suppose." "Or God's time," Willow said quietly. "The Reverend would say there are no coincidences, only providence." Travis studied her for a moment, his storm-gray eyes taking in her copper skin, her high cheekbones, the proud set of her shoulders. "You are one of Reverend Thomas's people." "I am Apache by birth," Willow said, lifting her chin slightly. She had learned not to hide from what she was, even when prejudice made it dangerous. "The Reverend and his wife raised me after my family was killed when I was a child. They taught me about faith, education, and compassion. I teach the Apache children at their mission school now." Something shifted in Travis's expression, a kind of respect mixed with curiosity. "Takes courage to teach, especially out here. Takes even more courage to claim both worlds the way you just did." Before Willow could respond, Sheriff Morrison approached, a barrel-chested man with a thick mustache and grateful eyes. "Travis Vaughn, you are a sight for sore eyes. When did you get back from Colorado?" "Just today, Sheriff. Thought I would stop through White Oaks on my way to visit my brother's ranch down near Lincoln." Travis glanced at Willow again, then back to the sheriff. "Seems I picked an eventful day. That gang has been hitting small towns all through the territory," Sheriff Morrison explained. "We are mighty grateful you showed up when you did. That young lady you just met, Miss Everett, she is something special around here. Heaven help us if anything had happened to her." Willow felt her cheeks warm at the praise, but she remained silent. It was the Apache way to listen more than one spoke, to observe and understand before acting. The missionaries had encouraged her to express herself, but some lessons from her earliest years remained bone deep. "Well, I am glad I could help," Travis said. He looked at Willow again, and she felt something strange flutter in her chest. "Miss Everett, might I walk you wherever you were headed? Streets might not be entirely safe yet." "I was going to the mission," Willow said, "but I can manage the walk alone. I have been doing so for 3 years." "I do not doubt your capability, madam," Travis replied with a slight smile that transformed his serious face into something warmer. "But I would count it a privilege if you would allow me to accompany you anyway. Call it a cowboy's need to see a good deed through to the end." Willow found herself nodding before she consciously decided to agree. "Very well, Mr. Vaughn. The mission is half a mile north of town. Your horse can come along as well." They walked together through White Oaks, Travis leading his paint horse by the reins. The town was beginning to return to normal, with shopkeepers emerging from their establishments and children cautiously peeking around corners. Several people called out thanks to Travis as they passed, and more than a few curious glances followed Willow and her unexpected escort. "How long have you been teaching?" Travis asked as they left the main street behind, following a well-worn path toward the small mission compound visible in the distance. 2 years properly," Willow replied, "though I helped the Reverend and his wife with the younger children even before that. Many Apache families send their children to us because they trust that we will not try to destroy what they are, only add to it. The Reverend believes that faith should be a bridge, not a weapon." "That is a rare perspective out here," Travis observed. "Most missionaries I have encountered want to erase every trace of Indian heritage." "Yes," Willow said quietly. "The Reverend and Mrs. Thomas are rare people. When they found me, I was sick with fever and half-starved. My village had been attacked by raiders, not soldiers, but the result was the same. Everyone I loved was gone. The Reverend could have sent me to one of the government schools. Instead, they took me into their own home, learned my language, honored my people's ways while teaching me about Jesus. They saved my life in every way that matters." Travis was quiet for a moment, the only sounds their footsteps on the hard, packed earth and the jingle of his horse's bridle. "That kind of love leaves a mark on a person," he finally said. "I can hear it in how you speak about them." "Love always leaves a mark," Willow agreed. "What brought you to Colorado, Mr. Vaughn? The sheriff seemed to know you." I worked cattle up there for a while, Travis said. Before that, I was drifting, trying to outrun some ghosts. My parents died of cholera when I was 18, left me and my younger brother to fend for ourselves. Thomas, my brother, he was always the steady one. Got himself a small ranch, married a good woman, started building a life. Me, I was not ready to settle. Spent the last 8 years moving from place to place, working where I could, never staying long enough to put down roots. And now, Willow asked, intrigued by the melancholy note in his voice. Now I am tired of running, Travis admitted. I am 26 years old and I have nothing to show for my years except a good horse, a decent reputation with a gun, and a lot of empty miles behind me. Thought maybe it was time to stop near my brother, find some land, build something that lasts. They had reached the mission compound, a cluster of adobe buildings with a small church at the center. Willow could hear children's voices drifting from one of the structures, their laughter bright and carefree. Reverend Thomas was working in the vegetable garden, his white hair brilliant in the afternoon sun. He looked up at their approach and smiled. "Willow, my dear girl," he called, straightening with a hand pressed to his lower back. "We heard the shooting in town. Are you well?" "I am fine, Reverend," Willow assured him. "This is Mr. Travis Vaughn. He stopped those outlaws." Reverend Thomas approached, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile as he extended his hand to Travis. "Then we owe you a debt of gratitude, young man. Willow is precious to us, to this whole community. Come inside, both of you. Martha will want to meet you and offer proper thanks." Over the next hour, Willow watched Travis integrate himself into the mission's warm chaos with surprising ease. Mrs. Thomas, a petite woman with gentle eyes and iron determination, fussed over them both, insisting they eat fresh bread and drink cool water from the well. The children, ranging from 5 to 15 years old, crowded around to hear the story of the outlaws, their eyes wide with excitement. Travis told the tale with appropriate drama, but without glorifying the violence, and Willow noticed how he made a point of praising the sheriff and his deputy, deflecting attention from his own actions. There was a humility to him that contrasted with the deadly confidence she had witnessed on the street. "Will you stay for supper, Mr. Vaughn?" Mrs. Thomas asked. "It is the least we can offer after what you did today." Travis hesitated, glancing at Willow. She found herself hoping he would say yes, though she could not entirely explain why. There was something about this lonely cowboy that called to something deep within her, a recognition of shared solitude despite their different paths. "I would be honored, madam," Travis said. "But only if I can help with the preparations. My mama taught me to be useful, not just decorative." That drew laughter from everyone, and soon Travis was helping Reverend Thomas repair a fence while Willow and Mrs. Thomas prepared the evening meal. But Willow's attention kept drifting to the window, watching the tall cowboy work with efficient competence, talking easily with the Reverend while his hands made quick work of the broken rails. "He is a good man," Mrs. Thomas observed quietly, following Willow's gaze. "I can always tell. He has been hurt, but it has not made him cruel." "I barely know him," Willow protested, but her cheeks warmed. "The heart knows what the mind has not yet learned," Mrs. Thomas said, repeating one of her favorite sayings. "I am simply observing that he looks at you the way my Thomas looked at me when we first met, 50 years ago, like you are water in the desert." Willow wanted to dismiss the observation, but she had felt those looks, those storm-gray eyes returning to her again and again as if drawn by some invisible thread. She had never been courted, never allowed herself to think much about romance. The mission and her students filled her days, and she had convinced herself that was enough. But Vaughn's arrival had awakened something she had not known was sleeping. Supper that evening was lively, with the children bombarding Travis with questions about his travels. He proved to be a natural storyteller, describing Colorado's mountains and Wyoming's vast plains, talking about cattle drives and frontier towns, always careful to include lessons about kindness and integrity in his tales. After the meal, as the children settled in for evening prayers, Travis prepared to leave. Willow walked him to his horse, the desert twilight painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Thank you for today," she said quietly. "For saving lives, for being kind to the children, for treating the Reverend and Mrs. Thomas with respect. Many people look down on missionary work with the Apache." "Many people are fools," Travis replied bluntly. "What the Thomases are doing here, what you are doing, teaching children to read and write while honoring their heritage, that is sacred work. That takes more courage than anything I did with a gun today." Willow met his eyes, struck by the sincerity she saw there. "Will you return to visit your brother now?" Travis was quiet for a moment, his hand resting on his horse's neck. "I was planning to," he said slowly, "but I find myself thinking I might stay in White Oaks for a spell. Sheriff mentioned they could use a deputy, what with the outlaw troubles. And I heard there is some land available east of town, good water, decent grazing, might be a place to finally stop running." Willow's heart beat faster. "That would be good," she managed to say, trying to keep her voice steady. "The town needs good men, and it would be nice to have a friend." "Friend," Travis repeated, and something in his expression suggested the word was both a beginning and not quite enough. "Yes, I would like that very much, Miss Everett. Might I call on you sometimes if I do stay? Perhaps I could ride out here, help with repairs or heavy work around the mission." "The Reverend would appreciate that," Willow said, "and I would as well." Travis mounted his horse with easy grace, but he did not immediately ride away. "Your faith," he said thoughtfully. "The Reverend mentioned you pray both Apache prayers and Christian ones. How do you reconcile them?" It was a question few people had the courage or interest to ask. Willow considered her answer carefully. "I believe the Creator who made the mountains and the desert, the sun and the stars, is the same God the missionaries taught me about. My Apache mothers taught me to honor the earth and respect all living things. Jesus taught love and compassion. I see no contradiction, only different languages describing the same truth. My faith is like a river with two sources, both flowing to the same ocean." Travis was quiet for a long moment, his storm-gray eyes reflecting the last light of day. "That is beautiful," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "I lost my faith when my parents died, when it seemed God had abandoned me and my brother. But listening to you, I think maybe I was not listening right. Maybe I was expecting God to speak only one language." "Faith is a journey, not a destination," Willow said, echoing Reverend Thomas's teachings. "We all walk different paths to find it. Will you help me find my way back?" Travis asked, and the vulnerability in his question made Willow's breath catch. "I have been lost a long time, Willow. But today, when I saw you stand up behind that water trough, saw the courage in your eyes and the strength in how you carried yourself, I thought maybe I had been led to White Oaks for more than one reason." Willow felt tears prick her eyes, moved by his honesty. "I will walk beside you on that journey, Travis Vaughn, if you truly wish it." "I truly wish it," he said softly. Then he touched the brim of his hat in farewell and rode off into the gathering darkness, leaving Willow standing alone with her heart racing and her mind full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. The next weeks unfolded like a desert flower blooming after rain, beautiful and unexpected. Travis took the position as deputy sheriff. And true to his word, he found land east of White Oaks with a small creek running through it and began the hard work of building a ranch. But despite his obligations, he rode out to the mission 3 or 4 times each week, always finding some useful task to justify his presence. He repaired the roof of the schoolhouse where Willow taught, replaced rotting fence posts, helped Reverend Thomas build new shelves for the growing collection of books, and split enough firewood to last through the coming winter. But what Willow treasured most were the conversations they shared during these visits, talking while they worked or walking together through the desert evening when her teaching day was done. Travis told her about his childhood in Kansas, about parents who had loved each other fiercely and taught their sons to value honor above wealth. He spoke of his brother Thomas with obvious affection, describing a steady, reliable man who had found happiness in simple things. He admitted his own restlessness, his years of wandering because staying in one place meant facing the grief he had been running from. Willow, in turn, shared memories of her Apache childhood, fragments preserved like precious jewels in her mind. She told him about her mother, who had been skilled with healing herbs, and her father, who had taught her to read the desert like others read books. She spoke of the terror of the raid that destroyed her village, the fever and confusion that followed, and the gentle voices of the Thomases pulling her back from death's edge. "I was angry at first," she admitted one evening as they sat on the mission's front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky. "Angry that I survived when everyone else died. Angry at being Apache in a world that hated us. Angry at God for allowing such cruelty." "What changed?" Travis asked, his voice gentle. "Mrs. Thomas," Willow said with a small smile. "She never tried to talk me out of my anger or tell me I should not feel what I felt. She just sat with me through it, night after night when nightmares woke me screaming. She held me while I cried and raged. And slowly, I began to understand that God did not cause the raid, evil men did. But God put me in the path of people who would love me back to wholeness. My Apache family gave me my first years, my identity, my strength. The Thomases gave me healing, education, and faith. Both were gifts, both were love. I honor them all by living fully, by teaching others, by refusing to let hate win." Travis reached over and gently took her hand, the first time he had touched her beyond helping her over rough ground or passing her tools during their work. His hand was calloused and warm, and Willow felt that touch all the way to her soul. "You are remarkable," he said quietly. "Your fierce spirit, your faith, your refusal to be broken by tragedy. I have met a lot of people in my travels, Willow, but I have never met anyone like you." "And you are a good man, Travis Vaughn," Willow replied, daring to curl her fingers around his. "Lonely, I think, but good. You pretend to be just a drifter, just a cowboy with a gun, but I see more. I see someone who stops to help, who treats children with kindness, who is building a ranch not because he needs wealth, but because he needs purpose. I see someone finding his way home." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness settled over the desert, their hands intertwined, both aware that something profound was growing between them. It was Reverend Thomas who eventually interrupted, stepping onto the porch with his pipe and a knowing smile. "Travis, will you join me for a walk?" he asked, and though it was phrased as a question, it was clearly a gentle command. Travis squeezed Willow's hand once before releasing it and standing. "Of course, Reverend." Willow watched them walk toward the garden, 2 figures silhouetted against the star-filled sky. She knew the Reverend would be taking Travis's measure, ensuring his intentions were honorable. It was the father's role, even if the relationship was born of choice rather than blood. When Travis returned an hour later, his expression was serious but not troubled. "The Reverend is a wise man," he said simply, "and he loves you very much." "What did he say to you?" Willow asked. "He asked me what my intentions were toward you," Travis replied honestly. "I told him the truth. That I am falling in love with you. That I have been since the moment I saw you stand up with dust in your hair and fire in your eyes. That I want to court you properly, with respect for you, for him and Mrs. Thomas, for your Apache heritage and your faith. That I am building my ranch hoping you might someday share it with me, but that I will take whatever time you need, earn whatever trust I must." Willow's breath caught. "And what did he say?" "He said you have been through enough in your life without someone playing games with your heart. He said if I hurt you, he would hunt me down himself, minister or not." Travis smiled slightly. "Then he gave me his blessing to court you, provided I remember always that you are not property to be claimed but a woman to be cherished. That your strength is not something to tame but something to honor." He said all that. Willow felt tears threatening. He did, and he was right about every word. Travis stepped closer, his storm-gray eyes intense in the lamplight spilling from the mission house. "So I am asking you properly, Willow Everett. May I court you? May I earn the right to walk beside you, not ahead or behind, but beside you as partners should?" Willow had spent 20 years learning to be strong, to stand alone, to need no one. But standing there with this lonely cowboy who saw her faith and her fierce spirit and loved them both, she realized that strength was not about standing alone. It was about choosing who to stand with. "Yes," she said softly. "Yes, Travis, you may court me." His smile was like sunrise, bright and full of promise. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, and gently cupped her face with his calloused hand. "I will do right by you," he promised. "That is my vow before God and on my parents' memory." The courtship that followed became the talk of White Oaks, though not everyone approved. There were those who muttered about Travis lowering himself by courting an Indian woman, even one raised by missionaries. There were others who questioned whether Willow was betraying her Apache heritage by accepting the attentions of a white cowboy. But Travis and Willow paid the gossip no mind. They were too busy building something beautiful together, a relationship rooted in respect and blossoming into deep love. Travis took Willow to church on Sundays, sitting proudly beside her in the pew, and glaring down anyone who dared look askance. Willow, in turn, took Travis into the desert and taught him to read the land as her father had taught her, showing him which plants were edible, which held medicine, how to find water where others saw only dust. "My people believe that all life is connected," she explained one afternoon as they rode together across the rangeland that would be Travis's ranch. She sat behind him on his paint horse, her arms around his waist, their bodies moving in easy rhythm with the animal's gait. "The earth is not just dirt to walk on, but a living thing that sustains us. When we take from it, we must give thanks and take only what we need. Teach me," Travis said, and she could hear the sincerity in his voice. "Teach me to see the world through your eyes." So Willow taught him Apache prayers of gratitude, songs sung to the morning sun and evening stars. She showed him how to move quietly through the land, observing without disturbing. She shared stories passed down through generations about Coyote the trickster and the creation of the world, tales that carried wisdom wrapped in entertainment. Travis absorbed it all with the intensity of a man thirsting for meaning. He had spent so many years drifting, disconnected from anything deeper than his next job or the next town. But Willow's faith, woven from two traditions into something uniquely her own, called to something in his soul that had been silent since his parents' death. "I think I am beginning to understand," he told her one evening as they stood together watching the sunset from the partially built ranch house. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. "Why you can hold both the Apache ways and the Christian faith without conflict. It is all about love, is it not? Love for the Creator, love for creation, love for each other. The details may differ, but the heart is the same." Willow turned to look up at him, her dark eyes shining. "You understand better than many who claim to be teachers of faith. Yes, it is about love. Always about love." Travis bent his head, and Willow rose on her toes to meet him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, reverent, a promise sealed with the tenderness of two people who had found something precious and had no intention of taking it for granted. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, and Travis rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Willow Everett," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I love your strength and your gentleness, your faith and your fire. I love how you have taken tragedy and transformed it into purpose. I love how you make me want to be better, to build something meaningful, to put down roots so deep nothing can tear them up." "I love you too, Travis Vaughn," Willow replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I love your honest heart and your quiet courage. I love how you see me as a whole person, not just Apache or just Christian, not something to be saved or something to be tamed. You see all of me and love all of me, and that is a gift beyond measure." They stood together as the sky darkened, and the first stars appeared, wrapped in each other's arms and the growing certainty that they had found what both had been seeking without knowing they were searching. But their happiness was threatened in September when a group of Apache warriors, young men angry and desperate after their tribe was forcibly moved to a reservation with inadequate food and cruel conditions, broke away and began raiding outlying ranches. The territorial militia was called up, and tension in White Oaks rose to dangerous levels. Travis found himself in an impossible position, torn between his duty as a deputy and his love for Willow. The sheriff, while not prejudiced himself, was under pressure to demonstrate action against the raiders. There was talk of rounding up all Apache people, including the peaceful families at the mission, and forcing them onto the reservation. "I will not let that happen," Travis told Sheriff Morrison firmly. "The Thomases and their people have nothing to do with these raids. They are teachers and children, for God's sake." "I know that, Travis," the sheriff replied wearily, "but there are men in this town calling for blood. They do not care about distinguishing between peaceful Apache and raiders. They just want someone to punish." Willow heard the news and immediately began preparing for the worst. She gathered the children at the mission, the youngest ones frightened by the angry talk they had heard in town. She held them and reassured them, but inside her heart was breaking. She had lived through this nightmare before, this sudden transformation of neighbors into enemies, this reduction of her humanity to nothing more than her Apache blood. Travis arrived at the mission that evening, his face drawn with worry and exhaustion. He found Willow in the schoolroom, packing books into crates as if preparing for evacuation. When she looked up at him, her expression was calm, but her eyes were full of pain. "They will come for us, will they not?" she said quietly. "No matter that we have done nothing wrong, no matter that these children are innocent, we will all be judged by the actions of those desperate young warriors." "No," Travis said fiercely, crossing the room to take her hands. "I will not allow it. The sheriff will not allow it. We will protect this mission and everyone in it. You are one man, Travis. Two, if the sheriff stands with you. How will you stop a mob if one forms?" Willow's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled in his. "I have seen this before. I lived it as a child. Angry white men do not listen to reason when blood is up." "Then we will make them listen," Travis insisted. "Willow, I promise to stand beside you. That promise holds in good times and bad. I am not going anywhere." Reverend Thomas entered the schoolroom, his face grave. "Travis, there are men gathering in town. They are drinking and working themselves up. The sheriff sent word that we should prepare for trouble." "How many?" Travis asked, immediately shifting into the hard-eyed Deputy Willow had first seen facing down outlaws. 20, maybe more," Reverend Thomas replied. "They are talking about burning us out, forcing us to leave. They say we are harboring raiders, which is absurd. We have not seen anyone but our own families for weeks." Travis thought quickly, his mind racing through options. "Reverend, gather all the adults and older children. Anyone who can help defend this place if it comes to that. But no one fires a weapon unless I give the word. I want to stop this without bloodshed if possible." "Travis, you cannot fight all of them," Willow protested. "I am not planning to fight," Travis replied. "I am planning to talk, but I need everyone ready just in case words are not enough." He cupped her face gently. "Trust me. Trust that God did not bring us together only to tear us apart now." As darkness fell, the mission residents prepared as best they could. Mrs. Thomas shepherded the youngest children into the church, the most solid building, while the older students and adult Apache families gathered with what few weapons they possessed, mostly hunting rifles and old revolvers. Travis positioned himself at the mission gate, alone and visible, his hands resting on his gun belt but not drawing. Willow stood on the church steps where she could see him, her heart in her throat. She prayed, words flowing in both Apache and English, begging for peace, for wisdom, for Travis's safety. They heard the mob before they saw it, angry voices and the thunder of many boots on the hard earth. Then they appeared, 24 men carrying torches and weapons, their faces twisted with fear and hatred. At their head was Jacob Burke, a rancher whose spread had been hit by the raiders, his cattle stolen and his barn burned. "Where are they?" Burke shouted, holding his torch high. "Where are the Apache raiders you are hiding?" "There are no raiders here, Mr. Burke," Travis called out, his voice carrying clearly in the night air. "There are only families, children, teachers, people who have lived peacefully here for years." "They are all the same," someone in the crowd yelled. "Indians are Indians. We should round them all up, send them where they belong." "And where is that?" Travis asked, his voice sharp as a blade. "Where do children belong except in school? Where do faithful people belong except in church? These folks here have done nothing but try to live in peace and teach young ones to read and write. If you have a problem with that, you have a problem with basic human decency." "Easy for you to say," Burke shot back. "Your barn did not burn. Your cattle were not stolen. Those raiders were Apache, and these are Apache. They are probably kin to the ones who raided me." "I am Apache," Willow said, stepping forward before Travis could stop her. Her voice rang out clear and strong, without a trace of fear, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "Does that make me responsible for what those desperate young men did to you? I teach children to read. I pray for peace. I have never stolen, never burned, never harmed anyone. Yet you would punish me, punish innocent children because we share blood with people you hate." The mob shifted uneasily. Some of the men in the back looked uncomfortable, but Burke's face remained hard. "You are different," he said dismissively. "You were raised white." "I was raised by missionaries," Willow corrected, her voice like iron wrapped in silk. "But I am Apache in my heart, in my blood, in my soul." "The same is true for every person behind these walls. We are Apache and we are Christian. We are teachers and students. We are human beings deserving of the same rights and respect you claim for yourselves. If you attack us, you attack innocent people. If you harm these children, you become the very monsters you claim to be fighting against." Travis moved to stand beside her, his presence solid and supportive. "Miss Everett speaks the truth," he he said. "I am a deputy sheriff sworn to uphold the law. The law says innocent people do not get punished for crimes they did not commit. The law says children are protected. If you come through this gate, you break the law, and I will stand against you." "You are just one man." Burke repeated the same calculation the outlaw leader had made weeks before. "No," Sheriff Morrison's voice rang out as he rode up behind the mob, 6 deputized townsmen with him. "He is not alone. I stand with Deputy Vaughn. The law stands with him. And any man here who wants to become an outlaw himself, who wants to trade his good name for mob violence, you step forward now and see what happens." The arrival of the sheriff and reinforcements changed the calculation. The mob had been held together by anger and alcohol and the anonymity of the crowd. But now, with lawmen present and the need for individual accountability, the resolve began to crumble. "This is not over," Burke said, but his words lacked conviction. "Those raiders are still out there." "And we will catch them," Sheriff Morrison replied. "Through proper law enforcement, not mob justice. Now all of you go home. Sleep off the whiskey and think about what you almost did here tonight. Think about how you would feel if it was your children someone wanted to hurt because of the actions of strangers." Slowly, reluctantly, the mob dispersed. Some of the men looked ashamed as they left, unable to meet Travis's eyes. Others remained angry, but without Burke's leadership and the sheriff's opposition, they lacked the cohesion to continue. When the last man had disappeared into the darkness, Travis finally allowed himself to breathe. He turned to Willow, who stood straight and proud despite the trembling in her hands. "That was the bravest thing I have ever seen," he said quietly. "You did not have to step forward like that." "Yes, I did," Willow replied. "I could not let you stand alone. And someone needed to remind them that we are people, not just a category they could hate without consequences." Words were the right weapon tonight, not bullets. Sheriff Morrison approached, removing his hat. "Miss Everett, your courage likely saved lives tonight, including my deputy's stubborn hide. Travis, you did good work here. Both of you did." Reverend Thomas and Mrs. Thomas emerged from the church, the children streaming out behind them as the danger passed. The relief was palpable, but so was the understanding that this peace was fragile. As long as the raiders remained free and fear ruled the territory, the mission and its residents would remain vulnerable. Over the following weeks, Travis threw himself into tracking the raiding party with an intensity that worried Willow. He barely slept, spending long days following trails through the harsh desert terrain. But he was also careful, trying to find a way to end the raids without more bloodshed. His solution came through an unexpected source. Travis requested a meeting with an Apache elder named Swift Arrow, who lived on the reservation but was respected by both reservation and free Apache people. Through Swift Arrow, Travis managed to get a message to the raiders, offering them safe passage to speak with him before the territorial militia caught up with them. The meeting took place in a remote canyon, with Willow translating as Travis spoke to 5 young Apache warriors, none older than 22, all desperate and angry. "I understand why you left," Travis said, his words sincere. "I have seen the reservation, the short rations, the corruption, the lack of medicine. What your people are suffering is a crime, and I am ashamed of it. But these raids will not solve the problem. They will only give those who hate you more ammunition, more excuses to hunt all Apache people." The leader of the group, a young man named Running Deer, glared at Travis. "Pretty words from a white man. What do you offer besides surrender?" "I offer my word that I will fight for better conditions on the reservation," Travis replied. "I will write to the territorial governor, to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I will make noise until someone listens. I offer safe return to the reservation without execution. The sheriff has agreed that if you return the stolen cattle and turn yourselves in, you will face trial but not a firing squad. We will still go to prison, Running Deer said bitterly. Yes, Travis acknowledged. Because you did commit crimes, even if desperation drove you to it. But you will live. You will have the chance to eventually return to your families, and your surrender will remove the excuse that frightened white men are using to threaten peaceful Apache people, like those at the mission. This caught Running Deer's attention. The mission. They want to hurt the teachers and children. They already tried, Willow said softly. We stopped them, but only barely. As long as you remain free and raiding, they have an excuse. Your courage in fighting back is understandable, but it puts innocents at risk. The young warriors argued among themselves in rapid Apache. Finally, Running Deer turned back to Travis. You give your word that we will face trial, not murder, that you will fight for our people on the reservation. I give my word before God and this woman I love, who is Apache and understands what that promise means, Travis said firmly. I cannot promise to fix everything. The government's treatment of your people is a stain on this nation's soul. But I promise to try, to use whatever influence I have, to speak truth to power. That is what I can offer. 3 days later, the raiders turned themselves in to Sheriff Morrison, returning what remained of the stolen cattle. True to Travis's word, they received trial, prison sentences, and their lives. The territorial militia, deprived of their quarry, stood down, and Travis began a letter-writing campaign that would consume his evenings for months, detailing the conditions on the reservation and demanding reform. The crisis passed, but it had revealed the depth of Travis and Willow's commitment to each other. They had stood together against fear and hatred, had risked everything for what was right. In the aftermath, their love deepened from attraction and affection into something unshakable. It was October when Travis finally completed his ranch house, a solid adobe structure with a wide porch facing east to catch the sunrise. He invited Willow and the Thomases to see the finished home, and Willow's breath caught as she toured the 3 rooms Travis had built with his own hands. In the main room, he had installed shelves for books. In the bedroom, he had placed a sturdy bed frame he had built himself, clearly large enough for 2. And in the corner of what would be the kitchen, he had hung a small wooden cross alongside a dream catcher, the 2 symbols side by side in perfect harmony. For you, Travis said softly, standing close behind Willow as she stared at the dual symbols. Because you taught me that faith has room for both, that honoring different traditions does not mean rejecting any of them. This house is built for us, Willow, if you will have me, if you will marry me and make this place a home. Willow turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. Are you asking me to marry you, Travis Vaughn? I am, he said, dropping to one knee right there in the unfinished kitchen. I know we have only known each other a few months. I know there will be people who disapprove, who will make our lives harder because you are Apache and I am white. But I also know that I love you with everything I am. I love your faith and your fierce spirit both. I love how you have made me believe in purpose again, in building something that matters. I love how you see the best in people while never pretending the worst does not exist. Willow Everett, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner? Will you let me stand beside you and honor you all the days of my life? Yes, Willow said through her tears, pulling him to his feet so she could kiss him. Yes, Travis, I will marry you. I love you. I choose you. I choose this life we will build together. Reverend Thomas, who had been standing in the doorway with his wife, cleared his throat. Well, young man, you have my permission and my blessing. When would you like this wedding to happen? As soon as possible, Travis said, grinning. "Unless Willow wants a long engagement. I have waited 20 years to find someone who sees all of me and loves all of me," Willow replied. "I do not want to wait another day longer than necessary." They were married 3 weeks later in the mission church, on a cool November morning with the desert sky brilliantly blue overhead. The church was packed with everyone from the mission and many townspeople from White Oaks, including Sheriff Morrison and several of Travis's fellow deputies. Jacob Burke even attended, hat in hand, and apologized to Willow for his behavior during the crisis. Willow wore a simple white dress that Mrs. Thomas had sewn, with Apache beadwork around the collar and sleeves, a perfect blend of both her heritages. Travis wore his best suit, looking uncomfortable in formal clothes but radiating happiness. Reverend Thomas performed the ceremony, incorporating both Christian vows and an Apache blessing that honored the 4 directions and the sacred nature of marriage as a bond between 2 people and the Creator. When Travis kissed his bride, there was not a dry eye in the church. The celebration afterward was joyous, with food and music lasting well into the evening. The mission children danced and played, while adults shared stories and laughter. Even those who had initially been skeptical about the marriage found themselves caught up in the genuine love between the bride and groom. As the sun set and the party began to wind down, Travis and Willow prepared to leave for their ranch. But before they could depart, Swift Arrow appeared, the Apache elder who had helped facilitate the meeting with the raiders. He approached the newlyweds with great dignity. "I have come to offer a gift," Swift Arrow said in Apache, which Willow translated for Travis. "This marriage between our peoples is a good thing, a bridge between worlds that have been at war too long. You, Willow of the Apache, have not forgotten who you are even as you learn new ways. You, Travis of the Cowboy people, have shown respect and honor to those different from you. Together, you can be a light in dark times." He presented them with a beautifully woven blanket, its pattern telling a story of 2 rivers joining to become one stronger current. "May your marriage be blessed with many years, strong children, and the wisdom to weather all storms together." Travis, deeply moved, clasped Swift Arrow's hand. "Thank you, grandfather. Your blessing means more than you know. We will strive to be worthy of it." That night, Travis carried Willow over the threshold of their new home, both laughing and crying at once. He set her down gently in the main room, where a fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Welcome home, Mrs. Vaughn," he said softly. "Welcome home, my husband," Willow replied, pulling him down for a kiss. Their first year of marriage was not without challenges. Travis's letter-writing campaign had attracted attention, and not all of it positive. Some criticized him for defending Indians, calling him a traitor to his race. Others accused Willow of being too assimilated, too willing to accept white ways. But the couple faced the criticism together, secure in their love and their purpose. Travis continued working as deputy while building up his small ranch. Willow continued teaching at the mission, riding to and from their home each day, or sometimes staying at the mission when weather was bad or Travis's deputy duties kept him away overnight. They built a life of simple rhythms, hard work, and deep contentment. On warm evenings, they would sit on their porch and talk about everything and nothing. Travis learned more Apache from Willow, becoming functional in the language. Willow taught him more about Apache traditions, the meaning behind ceremonies, the spiritual significance of various practices. In turn, Travis shared his own family's traditions, stories of his Kansas childhood, recipes his mother had taught him. "I wish my parents could have met you," Travis said one evening as they watched the stars emerge. "My mother would have loved you." She always said the measure of a person was in how they treated those who could do nothing for them. You would have passed her test with flying colors. And I wish I could have met them, Willow replied, leaning against him. They raised a good son. 2 good sons from what you have told me about your brother. Speaking of Thomas, Travis said, I received a letter from him today. He and his wife Catherine want to meet you properly. Would that be all right? Of course, Willow said warmly. Family should know family. Thomas and Catherine Vaughn arrived in December, and the meeting exceeded everyone's hopes. Thomas was indeed steady and reliable, a rancher with calloused hands and an easy smile. Catherine was a practical woman with a kind heart, and she took to Willow immediately. The 2 couples spent a wonderful week together, and when Thomas and Catherine left, it was with promises to visit regularly and an invitation for Travis and Willow to come stay at their ranch come spring. That winter was harsh, with several hard freezes and one snowstorm that left the desert white for 3 days. Travis and Willow spent those cold months making their house truly a home, adding touches that reflected both their personalities. Travis built more furniture, a rocking chair and a table for the kitchen. Willow wove baskets in the Apache style and made curtains for the windows. Together, they accumulated books for their shelves and made plans for the future. I want children, Willow said one night as they lay in bed, listening to wind howl outside. I want to fill this house with laughter and teaching, with babies who grow up knowing both their heritages, who learn to walk in both worlds without shame. I want that too, Travis replied, holding her close. Though I confess the thought terrifies me. What do I know about being a father? What did you know about being a husband? Willow countered. Yet you are wonderful at it. We will learn together, make mistakes together, love our children fiercely together. That is all any parent can do. In February, Willow discovered she was expecting their first child. The joy was overwhelming, but so was the fear. They both knew the challenges their child would face, being of mixed heritage in a world that often demanded people choose sides. But they had faced challenges before, and they would face this one together. Travis became almost comically protective, trying to prevent Willow from doing anything strenuous. She tolerated it with amused patience for about a week before sitting him down for a serious talk. I am pregnant, not fragile, she said firmly. Apache women work until the day they give birth and return to work soon after. I will not be made of glass just because I carry our child. You must trust me to know my body and my limits. Travis, chastened, agreed to worry less overtly, though Willow often caught him watching her with concern in his storm-gray eyes. She found it endearing, evidence of how deeply he loved her and their unborn baby. Spring came with wildflowers covering the desert in unexpected beauty. Willow's pregnancy progressed smoothly, and as her belly grew, so did the anticipation of everyone who loved them. Mrs. Thomas was already knitting baby clothes, and Travis's brother sent a cradle he had built himself. In May, they made the trip to visit Thomas and Catherine Vaughn at their ranch near Lincoln. The week they spent there was restorative, full of laughter and family bonding. Catherine, who had lost a baby the year before, touched Willow's belly with reverent joy and shared advice about childbirth. You will be a wonderful mother, Catherine said. I can already see it in how you talk about teaching, how you interact with children. This baby is blessed to have you both. On the last day of their visit, the 4 of them climbed a hill overlooking both ranches, the vista stretching endlessly in all directions. Travis put his arm around Willow, his hand resting on her belly where their child grew. We are building something that will last, Thomas said quietly. Both of us, in our own ways. Papa and Mama would be proud. They would, Travis agreed. They would especially love Willow. She is everything they taught us to value. As summer's heat intensified, Willow reduced her teaching schedule at the mission, focusing on training one of her older students to take over some duties. She spent more time at home, preparing for the baby's arrival and enjoying the slower pace. Travis made sure she wanted for nothing, taking on extra work to save money for the expenses a baby would bring. August arrived with temperatures that made every movement an effort. Willow, heavy with child, moved with the careful deliberation of someone carrying precious cargo. She continued her prayers, both Apache and Christian, asking for a safe delivery and a healthy child. The baby came on a sweltering afternoon, 3 weeks earlier than expected. Travis, panicked, rode like a demon to fetch Mrs. Thomas while Sheriff Morrison brought the doctor. The labor was intense but mercifully quick, and when the sun touched the western horizon, a baby's cry pierced the air. "A boy," Mrs. Thomas announced, placing the squalling infant in Willow's arms. "A perfect, beautiful boy." Travis, allowed into the room at last, approached the bed with tears streaming down his face. He looked at his wife, exhausted but glowing, and at the small bundle she held, and something in his heart expanded almost past bearing. "Our son," Willow said softly. "What shall we name him?" They had discussed names extensively during the pregnancy. Travis wanted to honor Willow's Apache heritage, while Willow wanted their son to have a name that would not immediately mark him as other in white society. The solution they reached honored both concerns. "James," Travis said. "For my father, but also Tsi," he added, using the Apache word he had learned from Willow. "It means stone, rock, something strong and enduring." "James Tsi Vaughn," Willow said, testing the name. "Yes, it is perfect. He will know both languages, both names, both ways of being. He will be whole." The boy was indeed perfect, with his mother's dark hair and golden skin, his father's storm-gray eyes. As the weeks passed and he grew, it became clear he had inherited Willow's quiet intensity and Travis's easy charm. He was a happy baby, content to be held by anyone at the mission or in town, already building bridges with his mere existence. Raising James brought new challenges and greater joys than either Travis or Willow had imagined. They taught him everything they knew, taking turns sharing their different traditions. James learned to pray to Jesus and to honor the 4 directions. He learned cowboy skills from his father and Apache wisdom from his mother. He grew up bilingual, switching between English and Apache with the ease of a child who knows no reason not to embrace both. When James was 2 years old, Willow became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was harder, and Travis's worry was more justified. But in the spring of 1881, they welcomed a daughter into the world, a tiny girl with her father's brown hair and her mother's fierce spirit evident from her first breath. They named her Sarah, for Travis's mother, with the Apache name Lilui, meaning singing hawk. She was indeed a singer, filling their home with babbling that graduated to actual songs as she grew. Where James was quiet and observant, Sarah was bold and vocal. Together, the siblings were a perfect balance. Travis's ranch prospered over the years, growing from a small operation to a respectable spread. His advocacy for better treatment of Apache people on the reservation bore fruit slowly but surely, with incremental improvements in rations and medical care. He never claimed credit, preferring to work behind the scenes, but everyone knew Deputy Vaughn was behind the changes. Willow's teaching evolved as well. She began writing down Apache stories and traditions, preserving them in books that could be shared with future generations. Her work caught the attention of a publisher in Santa Fe, and she began a second career as an author, documenting Apache culture with the respect of an insider and the clarity of someone trained in Western education methods. Their marriage remained strong through the years, tested by illness, by economic hardship during a terrible drought, by occasional flare-ups of prejudice. But they faced everything together, their love deepening with time rather than fading. On their 10th anniversary, Travis took Willow back to the spot where he had proposed, now marked by a small garden she had planted. Their children were staying with the Thomases, giving the couple a rare evening alone. 10 years, Travis marveled. Some days it feels like yesterday that I rode into White Oaks and saw you behind that water trough. Other days, I cannot remember life before you. I know what you mean, Willow said, leaning against him as they watched the sunset. You changed my life, Travis. You gave me a home, a family of my own blood to love and raise. You showed me that faith and love could overcome prejudice and fear. You changed mine just as much, Travis replied. Before I met you, I was lost, running from ghosts and grief. You taught me that faith is not just rules in a book but a living thing, that it can adapt and grow while remaining true. You taught me to honor what I did not understand, to see people instead of categories. You made me want to be the man you saw when you looked at me. They kissed as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the same colors that had witnessed their first conversation a decade before. So much had changed, but this remained constant. This love between a lonely cowboy and an Apache girl raised by missionaries, between a man who had lost his faith and a woman who had woven two faiths into one beautiful whole. James grew into a thoughtful young man, torn between following his father into law enforcement or his mother into teaching. Sarah, true to her fierce nature, announced at 12 that she wanted to be a doctor, to bring healing to both white and Apache communities. Travis and Willow encouraged both children to pursue their dreams, proud of the people they were becoming. The Thomases grew old gracefully, eventually retiring from active mission work, but remaining in the adobe house they loved. They doted on James and Sarah, and later on the third child Willow and Travis welcomed when Sarah was 5, a boy they named Thomas Swift Vaughn, honoring both Travis's brother and Swift Arrow, the Apache elder who had blessed their marriage and remained a cherished friend until his death. When Willow turned 40, she published her most important book, a comprehensive volume on Apache spirituality and its compatibility with Christian faith. It was controversial in some circles, celebrated in others, but it became required reading for missionaries working with native peoples. She dedicated it to the Thomases, who had shown her that love could cross any divide. Travis, at 48, retired from the sheriff's department with honors, having served White Oaks with distinction for over 20 years. He devoted himself full-time to the ranch and to supporting Willow's writing and teaching. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and his face bore the weathered lines of a man who had spent his life outdoors. But his storm-gray eyes remained as keen as ever, especially when they looked at his wife. Their children married and had children of their own. James wed a Mexican-American teacher and took over the mission school when Willow decided to focus on writing. Sarah, against all odds, became a doctor, studying back east before returning to New Mexico to open a practice that served everyone regardless of race or ability to pay. Thomas Swift followed his father into ranching, taking over the Vaughn spread and expanding it further. As the new century approached, Travis and Willow often sat together on their porch in the evenings, watching the sunset and talking about the life they had built. They were grandparents now, their grandchildren a beautiful mix of heritages, all of them raised to honor every thread in their complex ancestry. "We did well," Travis said one evening, holding Willow's weathered hand in his own. They were both in their 60s now, still healthy but feeling the weight of years. "We did," Willow agreed. "We built a family, raised children who know who they are, contributed something meaningful to the world. We stood for what was right even when it was hard. We loved each other through everything." "I still do," Travis said softly. "Love you, I mean. More than that day I first saw you, if that is even possible. You are still the water in my desert, Willow." "And you are still my home," Willow replied, tears gathering in her eyes. "My partner, my love, my gift from God. Every prayer I said in both languages was answered when you rode into White Oaks that day." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged, the same stars that had witnessed their courtship, their wedding, their decades of marriage. Around them, the desert whispered its eternal song, and in the distance, they could hear their grandchildren playing, the sound of the future they had built together. The ranch house stood solid and strong, its walls decorated with both crosses and dream catchers, its bookshelves full of volumes in English and Apache, its kitchen filled with recipes from multiple traditions. It was a home built on love that bridged worlds, on faith that could hold multiple truths, on the fierce determination of a cowboy and an Apache girl who chose each other and never looked back. Years continued to pass, marked by the rhythms of ranch life and the growing legacy of the Vaughn family. Travis and Willow celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and even 2 great-grandchildren, baby twins that Sarah's daughter had just welcomed into the world. The celebration was held at the ranch, with people coming from across New Mexico territory to honor the couple whose love story had become something of a legend. Apache elders shared the space with white ranchers, Mexican families mingled with missionary descendants, all united in their respect for Travis and Willow Vaughn. Reverend Thomas had passed away several years before, but Mrs. Thomas, now 93 and frail but still sharp as ever, gave a speech that left hardly a dry eye on the property. "When my husband and I found a sick Apache child 50 years ago, we could not have imagined the woman she would become," Mrs. Thomas said, her voice thin but clear. "Willow has been my daughter in all but blood, and she has done more good in this world than most people could accomplish in 3 lifetimes. And Travis, the cowboy who rode into our lives and saw not a category or a cause, but a remarkable woman worthy of love and respect, you have been the son of my heart. Together, you two have shown us all what marriage should be, what faith looks like in action, what it means to build bridges instead of walls." As the sun set on that golden anniversary celebration, Travis and Willow stood together much as they had 50 years before, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting on his chest. Their children and grandchildren surrounded them, a testament to the love that had started with a gunfight and a water trough. "No regrets?" Travis asked softly, for her ears alone. "Not a single one," Willow replied. "Every moment, good and bad, brought us here. I would not change anything." "Neither would I," Travis agreed. "You are still the best decision I ever made, Willow Vaughn." They lived several more years in contentment, eventually passing their ranch to young Thomas while they moved into a smaller house in town, closer to medical care and their children. But hardly a day went by that they did not visit the ranch, walk the land they had built together, remember all the years. Travis died peacefully in his sleep at 73, with Willow holding his hand and their children gathered around. His last words were her name, spoken with all the love of a lifetime. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch, with both a Christian minister and an Apache medicine man presiding over the service. A cross marked his grave, but also a circle of stones arranged in the sacred manner, honoring both his adopted faith and his wife's heritage. Willow lived 4 more years, continuing to write, to teach when she could, to love her large family with the same fierceness she had shown throughout her life. But everyone could see that part of her had gone with Travis, that she was waiting to join him. When she finally passed at 77, she died with a smile on her face, her last words a prayer that blended Apache and English, asking the Creator to reunite her with the lonely cowboy who had loved her faith and her fierce spirit both. They buried her beside Travis on that hilltop, their graves side by side facing the sunrise. The headstone bore both their names with an inscription chosen by their children. 2 paths became one road, 2 faiths became one love, 2 souls became one legacy. The ranch continued through the generations, as did the mission school James ran until his own old age. Sarah's medical practice grew into a clinic that still serves the community. Thomas Swift's descendants still work the land his grandparents built together. And in White Oaks, New Mexico, people still tell the story of the Apache girl raised by missionaries and the cowboy who rode in one August day in 1878, saw past prejudice and fear, and found love that changed not just 2 lives but countless others. It is a story of faith that could hold multiple truths, of fierce spirits that refused to be diminished, of love that built bridges and created legacy. It is a story that proves that the best way to honor different traditions is to weave them together into something new and beautiful, something that celebrates all threads without diminishing any. It is a story of the Wild West at its very best, when courage and compassion could overcome hatred, when love could triumph over fear. And on that hilltop where Travis and Willow rest together, the wind still whispers through the grass, carrying prayers in 2 languages to a heaven big enough for every faithful heart, regardless of the path they took to find it. The sunset still paints the sky in gold and purple every evening, and if you listen closely in the desert silence, you might hear an echo of their voices, still talking, still laughing, still loving across the boundaries of time and mortality. Their grandchildren's grandchildren still visit that hilltop, still tell the story, still learn the lesson that Willow and Travis embodied with their every breath. That love is stronger than prejudice, faith is broader than dogma, and family is built not just by blood but by choice, commitment, and the determination to honor all that makes us beautifully, perfectly human. The legacy they left is not just in the land they tamed or the children they raised, but in the example they set. They proved that different worlds need not be in conflict, that heritage can be honored without becoming a prison, that faith can be both traditional and evolving. They showed that a lonely cowboy and an Apache girl raised by missionaries could find in each other everything they had been seeking, and in finding it, could illuminate the path for others. Their love story became a light in dark times, a reminder that choosing love over fear, bridge building over wall erecting, will always create something more beautiful and lasting than hatred ever could. And that light still shines, passed down through generations, still guiding those who seek to walk in multiple worlds with grace and integrity. The end of their mortal lives was only a transition, for love like theirs does not die. It transforms, becomes legend, then inspiration, then the foundation upon which new love stories build. Travis and Willow Vaughn live on in every person who chooses to see humanity before category, who honors multiple traditions without diminishing any, who builds bridges where others see only divides. This is their story, complete and whole, from that first moment behind the water trough to their final rest on the hilltop. It is a story with a definite ending, yet one that never truly ends, because the ripples of their choices, their love, their courage continues spreading outward, touching lives they never met, inspiring generations they could never have imagined. They found each other in a harsh land during a difficult time, two people who should have been divided by every circumstance of birth and history. But they chose differently. They chose love, faith, and the fierce determination to honor all of who they were and all they could become together. And in making that choice, they created not just a family but a legacy, not just a marriage but a testament to the power of love to transform everything it touches. Their story is closed, complete, perfect in its imperfection, human in its divinity. And it stands as eternal proof that when a lonely cowboy finds an Apache girl with faith and fierce spirit, when he has the wisdom to love both those things about her, when she has the courage to trust him with her whole self, together they can create something that outlasts their mortal years and becomes, quite literally, legendary.